you doing, Sabu?
Hey, good, Lanyaird.
Good. So we left off. It's been about a couple of weeks now,
Yeah,
and we had some exciting things that were about to happen.
yeah.
And based on what I understand, it looks like those things have kind of happened. You want to share?
Yeah. So we left my wife and I, we left for South Korea, direct flight from here on the Friday, the last week we were here.
Okay.
We were there for 10 days, and basically the whole purpose of the trip was we go there, we get to interact with our son, and then we go before a judge. So when you go before a judge, the judge basically looks through all of your paperwork, all the stuff that we've been providing for the last close to 2 years, and they look at everything and they want to verify that what they have on file matches the person that's in front of you.
Okay.
So it was challenging. It was fun. A little scary. I wasn't scared so much of the judge, but again, all the processes and everything are new. But the hard part is like you're not sure, what to expect, what to pray, all that stuff. But really good thing in all this was we ran into a whole bunch of people in very similar situation.
Okay.
People that had children, people that didn't, people this is their first time adopting. We found people who've been there multiple times. So it was a really, really good trip.
Great. Well, that's really good to hear. It sounds like your spirits were really uplifted from the whole experience. Now, we were talking about your relationship with your father.
Yeah.
How do we stand with that right now?
I think I told you he's in the process of moving from New York.
Okay.
So with that, we don't get a chance to talk as much.
Okay.
And which is understandable. We talk every so often, but as this process for us has been kind of progressing, he called me, and then I called him back.
Okay.
But
while you
this is right before we left.
Right before you left.
And
okay.
then I talked to him real quick after I got back as well.
Good.
The conversations were okay, but I wasn't all that thrilled initially with the conversation.
Before you left, or
before I left.
Okay.
Because I felt like here we are about to embark on this journey, and I think I told you sometimes I feel like when my dad actually decides to plug in and listen and figure out what's going on,
Okay.
it's almost like we're rewinding back to
Gotcha.
I don't know how long ago, right?
Okay.
So here I was one day, I'm doing a bunch of paperwork, going to a notary, getting a bunch of stuff done, just so I can have all of my paperwork finalized so I can present it to the judge.
Gotcha.
My dad calls me and he's like, hey, so what are you up to? I said, oh, I'm doing this, and this. And it seemed like he had like a little pause and his attitude kind of changed. He goes, oh, are you doing that again? What's wrong with these people? Don't they know that just you have a need, they have a child, let's just make this happen. And I don't know, it kind of pissed me off a
Okay.
little bit just hearing it.
Yeah, that was my next question. How did you feel behind that?
I stopped for a little bit,
Okay.
and I asked him, I said, well, why are you pissed off? I'm the one doing the paperwork.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't a heated exchange, but we exchanged some lines going back and forth, and I said to him, I'm like, I'm not really sure why you're frustrated with this.
Okay.
He's like, this is crazy. Why do they make people go through all this paperwork and all this stuff? So I started explaining a lot of what the paperwork is about.
Gotcha.
And he's like, okay. And he eventually said to me, okay, I didn't realize all that,
Okay.
And then he's like, but that still doesn't mean I agree with it, or I said, you don't agree with the process, or you don't agree with the adoption? Tell me, I want to understand more.
I want to understand.
Yeah, and he didn't really address the question. He was just like, you know what, you do whatever you got to do.
Gotcha.
So okay.
Yeah. So you're okay with that?
Yeah.
I know we had talked about early in our sessions how you were kind of really dependent upon, how your father felt. You really wanted him to be more engaged. How do you stand with that right now? What is your feelings on it?
Yeah, I think a part of me still wants that.
Okay.
And I think that's good, right?
Right.
It's not as though, okay, maybe my dad wasn't 100% on board.
Okay.
I can't say that my dad isn't on board right now.
Okay.
Maybe one foot's on and the other foot's kind of dragging.
Gotcha.
You know, but it's more. I guess there are moments where he'll ask me certain questions or say certain things. You know, and so at one point I said to him, I said, you know, Dad, this is hard. This paperwork is hard.
Okay.
Right. Did you do anything for me where you go, that was hard, but it was worth it?
Wow.
So he got silent. And so one thing I know about my dad is when he gets silent,
Okay.
it's usually when something is kind of sinking in.
Wow.
So all of that to say that, yeah, I was a little frustrated with that process and that exchange with him because I'm like, you know, I'm about to leave. We told you. I mean, he had no idea of the cost physically, of the cost financially, of the cost emotionally, and when you bring some of this up with him, that's when it's like, you know, there's almost silence, and the hard part is, it would be nice if there was a dialogue. You know,
Gotcha.
I would almost rather hear, "I hate it" than silence, because then you don't know what to think.
Right.
So,
Right. Exactly. Now you also spoke about your mentors.
yeah.
How did that help you out through this process?
Yeah, they've been so good. You know,
Good.
they've been really good. They've been contacting me on a pretty regular basis.
Good.
Sometimes I'm just like, I just want to be alone, and
Yes.
and they're good about just go do what you got to do.
Do what you
know,
gotta do.
Decompress.
Yeah.
Go take a drive. Put on some loud music. Do whatever you need to do. You know.
Yep.
And they've been really been around me to kind of fill in the gaps in a lot of areas. You know.
Good.
And the good thing is a lot of them have shared some of their frustrations with their fathers and with
Gotcha.
their grandfathers and with other folks. So it's really been helpful.
Validation.
So, yeah, validation in the sense that, okay, I'm not the only one going through this with my dad, because
Good.
some of my really close friends will tell me, be like, I'll give you one example. Two of my really close friends were telling me a story of how their dad left them during the prime years of their life when they were young boys to go
Yeah.
do ministry, because he
Yeah.
thought that was more important. Then the dad came back and they were talking about, they're sharing with me all the struggles of
Yes.
trying to get acclimated to a dad, and, you know, and it was really helpful.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. You were able to connect. It probably gave you a sense of balance. Would you say that with
Yeah.
what was going on with your dad and being able to
Yeah.
connect with your mentors?
Sure.
So you actually were able to share your experience with someone who helped validate how you were feeling and
Yeah.
to help inspire you in the process.
Yeah, and what I found is that, you know, I thought that whatever they shared was going to help me. Turns out it was like a exchange going on both ways. So I had this one conversation with my dad that I shared with a couple of these mentors, right?
Okay.
So my dad was, you know, me and my dad were talking, and I said, "Dad, did you give me everything that you possibly could as a dad?"
Okay.
You know, and he said, "I gave you everything." I said, so then my question to him was, "Do you think I got everything that I need?"
Okay.
You know, and he's like, "I don't know." I said, the answer is no, because no man can ever give another man everything that they need,
Right.
right? So when I shared that with my couple of friends, they're like, we never got a chance to ask a question like that to our dad, you know?
Yeah.
So they're like, wow, this is helping us too.
Yeah.
And when you were talking about validation, it was almost on another level, where sometimes you're going through something
Mm-hmm.
and you think it's just you and you're kind of confused, but it turns out that confusion and that what you say and you speak out in your own frustration
Mhm.
sometimes helps other people too.
There
So
you go.
yeah, so
Isn't it's so amazing how this works, huh?
yeah,
Well, that's good. It sounds like, you know, the relationships with your father turns out to be, you've learned from that relationship, but it also turns out that you were able to learn something from your mentors, but it looks like everybody is kind of like learning from each other.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's got to make you feel pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. At times, I'm like, I don't even know what to think, what's going on. But then you have these moments, sort of like this, where you learn from one another, and ultimately, just even spending time with my son and playing with him, you go, okay, you got to keep in mind there's a life at stake here that you get to impact, and that's very fulfilling.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, with that being said, do you find yourself having grown through this experience, and if so, in what ways?
Oh, there's no doubt. Grown in the sense that I think I am learning to be dependent on the Lord more. I'm learning to depend on people close to me more.
Okay.
And I'm also learning that even through the difficulties that I go through,
Okay.
I have something to offer, whether I realize it or not.
Good.
And just because it's frustrating in the moment doesn't mean that there won't be clarity later.
Gotcha.
I mean, I could probably go on for a while, but it's
Yeah.
like every day I sort of have to take time to reflect and go, all right, what happened? And sometimes the answer is nothing, right? But a week later, a month later, you go, wow, okay, maybe that wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
Yes.
So you need something immediately to look at stuff, and at the same time, you got to kind of go on top of a mountain and go, oh, look what happened over there, so.
Yeah. So what would you consider to be your greatest takeaway from this situation?
My greatest takeaway is that I'm a firm believer that it is the gospel and it is belief in Christ Jesus that is the narrative that causes me to move forward.
Okay.
So when I face opposition, the question is, how strongly do I believe that?
Gotcha.
And there's no doubt in my mind, adoption, relationships with fathers, this is all centered around the greatest story, which is the gospel. So if I believe in that strongly enough, I got to continue on in spite of opposition.
Great. So it sounds like your faith was even built up
It
through this
is.
whole process.
Not the way I thought it was going to be, but
Right.
it sure is happening.
Right. Well, that's great because just your disposition from the time we first started talking, even to now, it just seems like we've made great progress.
Yeah.
And what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's very helpful to talk openly about it.
Okay.
I come from a culture where a lot of things are just better behind closed doors, and with this process, that's not how it works.
Okay.
So that was sort of uneasy for me,
Okay.
and it's helping me grow.
Good.
Because I have to learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortable,
Good.
So
Good. Kind of settle in your uncomfortableness, right?
yeah.
In other words, I think there's a term called you got to learn how to sit with it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay.
Sometimes I want to
That's
run
good.
though.
Good, yeah. Well, that's amazing. We all have that point in our lives where we feel real uncomfortable and we really don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But yet when we just continue to move forward, push forward, and depend on and let our faith actually
Yeah.
take control, we can see how God can actually work in our lives.
Yeah.
He works through our situation. It appears that you've come to the conclusion that he's worked through your dad. He's worked through your friends. He's worked through the adoption process,
Mm-hmm.
and all that has actually helped strengthen and build you and help you get through this situation.
Yeah. And it's a daily process.
Right.
It's not something I believe it and forget about it.
Good,
So
good,
yeah, it's just helping. It's definitely helping.
good. Well, I'm glad. Well, Sabu, we're gonna go ahead and end it right here. I think we've. I'm very happy for you, and I'm looking forward to us getting together again next week, if that's okay with you.
Sure, yeah, sounds
Okay.
good.
All right. Well, have a good week.
All right, thank you.
All right.
I think in general, it's a great session, and Lanyaird, you have very tentative attitude, and you ask right question at the right time, and this time you didn't push anything, and so